मैं होती ना वेलकम बैक टू द एपिसोड ऑफ थॉट बिहाइंड थिंग्स। आज मेरे साथ मौजूद है एक बहुत ही खास मेहमान जिनको मैंने कोई 3-4 हफ्ते पहले बोला था कि आप आ जाएं हमारे शो के ऊपर, क्योंकि मैं आपका कंटेंट बड़ा रेगुलरली फॉलो करता हूं, बट आई थॉट कि वो कराची में होंगी, बड़ा टाइम लगेगा, बट थैंकफुली शी वाज
surprise with it. Surprise.
coming to Islamabad and we made this happen very early in the morning. Ariba Shahid from the Prophet magazine. Ariba, thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So before we start the conversation, मैं आपको थोड़ा सा बताता हूँ. Ariba is a star reporter at Prophet magazine. I love her work, been following her on Twitter for a very, very, very long time. And if you guys haven't subscribed to Prophet, it's a great magazine. आपको economics, business, advertising, industry wise premium content वहाँ पर मिलता है. Probably the only place जहाँ पर इतना वो होता है. तो again, they're not paying me for it. They probably should. This is the second time I'm marketing them, but you should definitely
please subscribe. It pays our salaries.
Subscribe to that. Ariba, I'm going to start the conversation. We're trying to sort of understand कि you're a major from IBA. You majored in economics and math. From your high school till date, how did this sort of evolution happen? Because IBA का बच्चा जनरली ग्रेजुएट करता है, वो कहता है जी मैंने हेज फंड में जाना है, मैंने बैंक में जाना है, मैंने पैसे कमाने वाली जॉब में जाना है, and you ended up in journalism, which generally doesn't pay a lot. So how did that happen?
All right, so it's actually really interesting. So when I was in my O levels, I took eco math, business studies, and accounting, वगैरह, and I loved economics. Like from the get-go, I would score the highest marks, and I would start reading, like generally like leisurely as well. So it was really fun. I actually enjoyed it. And A levels pe bhi wahi le liya. I had math, accounting, and economics, of course. And then uske baad I wanted.
कहाँ से कहता है?
I went to City School PF chapter. So chapter.
Right. बड़ा ये वो है, बड़ा prestigious एक तरह से है. Prestigious probably that's not the right word, but जो वहाँ से graduate करते हैं ना, वो बड़ा शो डालते हैं कि ओ जी हम PF चैप्टर गए थे.
So basically there are two. I personally think there are two types of people that went to chapter. One that went through chapter through and throughout, बचपन से बड़े होके, and one जो A levels में आते हैं. जो A levels में आते हैं वो अपने आप को कहते हैं, लेकिन मैं उनको समझती नहीं हूँ. Because you haven't been through chapter. So but PF chapter is a really cool place. It was fun. जितनी हवा उनके corridors में उतनी कराची में कहीं नहीं है. It's really like I want to go back, but like security की वजह से अब मैं जाती नहीं हूँ क्योंकि उतना गुस्सा होता है.
I understand. Right, so you graduated from there and then you straight up applied for IBA?
So no, I wanted to go abroad. Right. So I wanted to go to Scotland for my bachelor's. I wanted to go
very specific.
Yeah, I wanted to go to Scotland because I've always lived in big cities, and I wanted to go to St. Andrews for my bachelor's. And I even got a scholarship. Everything was going well. मैंने सोचा था कि last moment पे I'm going to go on hunger strike so that my parents have to send me. But like God had other things destined. My mom got really sick when I was in my A levels. Like exam के time पे my mom got really sick. She even went into a coma. So it was really bad. And I'm an only child. So I was like, no, I can't go. And मैं किस मुँह से, so like जिस दिन मेरी अम्मा की surgery थी and she got out of surgery, the next day was the last day for me to tell the university if I want to go or not. And I was like, no, not the right time to ask. So then I really wanted to study econ. So my options in Karachi were Karachi University or IBA. And I don't really like math, to be very honest. But since I wanted to go to IBA, I had to deal with math.
So that's a given कि अगर आप IBA से economics में graduate
back then, we only had econ and math together. It was a dual majors.
Right.
But right now, you can major in math, or you can major in economics, or you can major in both. So
right.
They should have done that back then.
But you had to go through the whole math.
I had to go through so much math.
Easy होगी थी math?
Oh, Allah. So topology was a course just me like more than half of the class would fail. Function analysis, real analysis were courses like where everyone would fail. Topology.
What does that entail?
याद नहीं है. So it's like, so I'll give you one line. Topologically speaking, a donut and a coffee mug are the same thing because they have one hole.
Okay.
Yeah, so like if you distort a coffee mug in a way, वो एक donut बन जाता है.
Right.
Yeah, so that's
odd.
That's the summary.
Right.
But that's not topology. But yeah, उसमें इतने theorems होते हैं ना कि मुझे theorems याद नहीं होता है.
तो वो रट्टा होता है उसके ऊपर.
Yeah, देखो, there are two types of people.
Can't they just give you like a set of कि भाई Google भी तो करना ही आपने आगे पूरी जिंदगी.
There are two types of people. One that can prove things themselves, like एक line लिखो, intuitively they know what's going to go next.
Right.
I'm not one of those. 2 जो रट्टा लगा सकते हैं. I'm not one of those.
Right.
So like I'm the third type, the type that struggles and cries. That's me. And I specifically remember this कि back then when I was getting my typology exam, कराची में stabber घूम रहा था जो औरतों को knife से मार रहा था.
Acha.
Yeah, this was the thing in Karachi back then. There was a guy that was stabbing women.
It's such a fascinating city.
Yes,
I mean,
it is.
there's
You
always
should
so
all
much
visit.
life to Karachi. I mean, you know, मैंने कभी इस्लामाबाद में एनेक्डोट नहीं सुना कि यार हाँ वो आजकल ना वो स्टैबर घूम रहा है तो इस वजह से हम
नहीं तो मैं मुझे एग्जाम नहीं देना था वो and I was like यार and I literally googled it कि can you die if someone stabs you and I realized the chances of dying of getting stabbed are not high if you don't pull out the knife.
That's a thing.
That's the thing. If you pull out the knife, then you might die because you bleed to death. Na? If you keep it in and get to the hospital, you might not die. And I was like, you know what? I think that sounds better than giving the exam. And I kid you not, I'm not making this up. That was actually what I thought. And I joked about this and my friends were like, yaar, tauba karo.
Kya morbid wo hai.
So yeah, guys, don't take topology. Zindagi tabah hoti hai.
Right. When did you graduate? When was the last year essentially?
2018.
So 2018 mein, out of IBA, what did you do? What was the first job that you did?
So I picked up a corporate research investigation job. And then following that, I worked at another firm as an economic researcher. And then one day I wrote an article on petroleum. And uske baad, and I had already given an interview at Profit, like randomly. I applied randomly, and Babir Nizami Saab Karachi mein aaye the, he took my interview, and I did not prepare for it. It was so chill. I never thought I wanted to go into journalism. I just went for the interview because I was like, yaar, chali jaati hu. And when I went for the interview, and then uske baad kya kehte hain, when I wrote that article, I sent it to him, and he's like, oh, I was about to message you, the position's open, and kya kehte hain, we were setting up offices. Aisa kuch kiya tha, mujhe yaad sahi se nahi hai. And he's like, would you still be interested? And I was like, let me think about it. And then I actually gave it like a week's thought, should I move, should I not? Because I never, my best friends bachpan ke, like, who've known me throughout, and when I joined Profit, they're like, you never said you wanted to be a journalist.
Yeah.
What happened? And I'm like, I have no idea, but I like it. So like, like people say, plan things out. Yes, you should, but like sometimes unplanned things are amazing.
Yeah.
So
explorative ho jata thoda sa na, like sometimes you don't even know you'd love something jo kya
yeah, like so okay, I love economics and I love writing. So it's like both. And then plus, so when I was interning, I interned at a brokerage firm where I learned a lot, to be very honest. So your internships are great opportunities as well. So when I interned there, wahan pe I realized that every week you're doing the same thing. So inflation numbers aa gaye, you punch it in. MPS aa raha hai, so you make a prediction. It's literally the same thing. At Profit, it's very different. So like, while we have the same things going on, every week I get a different topic. So kabhi kabar, if someone's complaining कि उनको कोकोमो कम मिल रही है तो मैं उस पे लिख दूंगी. कभी कभी मैं लिखूंगी कि लोटस और कैंडी एक चीज़ है लेकिन क्यों नहीं एक वो होता. I can literally write about whatever I want as long as I can give it a business spin. So
right.
I like this job. I never knew this existed.
Yeah, and essentially अगर आप अपनी personal insight की बात करें तो you're growing as a very मतलब interesting growth है ना, because you're able to understand the society year on year so much more. You're able to identify कि essentially हो क्या रहा है. Although वही वाली बात है कि वो लोगों को नहीं नज़र आ रहा होता है, वो थोड़ा बैकग्राउंड में होता है, but businesses जो decisions ले रहे होते हैं बड़ा सोच के ले रहे होते हैं. And if you're able to understand those decisions, then you're able to understand the overall कि पूरे पाकिस्तान में situation क्या चल रही है, किस तरफ जा रही है, much more, right, essentially.
So it ruins you because you can't take part in drawing room discussions anymore because वो cringe इतनी हो रही होती है. तो every time some uncle says something or some आंटियाँ तो बहुत कम economics में बोलती है, वैसे सही बात बताऊँ. But every time someone says something, आप उसमें या अगर शामिल हो गए तो you become so matter of fact that they all hate your guts.
Yeah.
So the best thing I do is I just go like, sorry, I wasn't listening. So yeah.
ये बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग बात की कि आंटियाँ बड़ी कम बोल रही थी. Why do you think पाकिस्तान में ख़वातीन जो हैं वो जनरली बिजनेस या इस तरह की चीज़ों से दूर रहती हैं? More often than not, at least पुरानी generations में तो ये specifically था.
So like for instance, one, jargons.
Right.
Unless they haven't studied, they're less likely to know these jargons. Or ऊपर से they don't need to know these based on the work they do. Like I'm assuming, like the ones that stay at home, For instance, there's this app I was working on a story about. So they said that they changed all the titles of things on their app and added descriptions because women were not using the app क्योंकि jargons थे. एक तो वो चीज़ और फिर दूसरी चीज़ इतना exclude किया जाता है. जैसे for instance, a year before I became a journalist, I still understood the economy to an extent, like as in I studied economics. Whenever uncles would have a drawing room discussion and I would partake in it and I would go like, nahi ye, तो मुझे they would shrug me off and I would be and मेरे घर में ये सब नहीं होता. मेरे घर में my parents and I, we have very open discussions. I can tell my dad you're wrong and my dad would be like, okay, why? And I'd explain to him. And he'd be like, okay, ठीक है, I agree. Or I don't agree. But then when I would see other people come in and, you know, just like बेकार, I'd be like,
because एक तो boomer and non-boomer का problem है, but उसी के साथ साथ अगर चलें लड़का होता है ना तो वो ये कहते हैं कि वो you know बड़ा ज़हीन हो गया.
हाँ.
लड़की होती है तो कहते हैं कि ये क्यों ये
बहुत okay, so if you look at my Twitter, my pinned tweet is बेटियों को ज़्यादा सर नहीं चढ़ाना चाहिए, and that is a sub-tweet.
अच्छा.
That's a sub-tweet to a lot of people that have told my dad कि आपने अपनी बेटी को बहुत सर चढ़ाया हुआ है. इन्होंने अपनी बेटी को बहुत सर चढ़ाया हुआ है, क्या करेगी ये, बहुत बोलती है, मतलब हर चीज़ पे उसको, मतलब the point is that I essentially, theoretically speaking, for them, I'm speaking on things that men should be talking about.
Yeah.
So that is a problem to some people.
Yeah, and it is a big problem simply because मैं आपको छोटी सी एक anecdote सुनाता हूँ. We recently hired a bunch of research journalists for our platform, and one of the girls, very smart, LUMS graduate, she came in one day and she was like, listen, like I am unable to open my bank account. And I was like, why? And she was like, oh, you know, because the bank is saying कि अपने वालिद साहब को लेकर आओ. And I took my वालिद साहब and then they came. पहले उन्होंने कहा कि जी मुझे तो पता नहीं आपकी proof of income क्या है. So मैं गई और मैंने जाके अपना जो जॉब का ऑफर लेटर है वो दिखाया. उन्होंने कहा कि मुझे क्या पता ये ऑफर लेटर रियल है कि नहीं, तो आप ऐसा करें कि अपने वालिद साहब से, एंड दिस इज बैंक अल फलाह बाय द वे, दिस इज लाइक गुड प्रेस्टीजियस बैंक, कोई नेशनल बैंक की मैं बात नहीं कर रहा है कोई रैंडो से बैठे हुए. अच्छा. उसमें जो है वो उन्होंने जाकर उन्होंने कहा कि आप अपना वालिद साहब से लिखवा के लेकर आएँ. उन्होंने लिखवाया कि जी ये मेरी बेटी है और ये इस तरह कर रही है. उन्होंने कहा मुझे क्या पता ये आपके वालिद साहब ने लिखा नहीं लिखा. सेकेंड टाइम शी हैड टू गो बैक टू अटेस्ट ऑल ऑफ द डॉक्यूमेंट्स. ठीक है. नाउ दिस इज द लम्स ग्रेजुएट वर्किंग इन अ कंपनी जिसकी तनख्वाह ट्रांसफर नहीं हो सकती बिकॉज द बैंक डजंट बिलीव एज अ, अगर वही एक लड़का होता है तो वो कहते हैं हाँ कहीं ना कहीं तो लड़का इस उम्र में नौकरी तो कर ही रहा होगा.
बैंकिंग सेक्टर इन पाकिस्तान has a thing for troubling people, so लड़के को भी थोड़ा तंग करते हैं.
थोड़ा सा तो करते हैं.
I think वो 2 दफ़ा नहीं जाना पड़ता, एक दफ़ा जाना
पड़ेगा.
एक दफ़ा रिपीट करना पड़ता है, लेकिन उसको भी तंग करते हैं. But it's absolutely difficult. So for instance, I was talking to someone a few days ago, and we were talking about why people buy gold, because essentially, they think it's a store of value, but like inflation के हिसाब से it's not always a store of value. In fact, I wouldn't think it is. So they were like, why do people buy gold? Like, and he was a guy, and I was like, you know what? You're a guy, and you're saying this. A lot of reasons why women give gold to their daughters on their wedding is primarily because अगर कभी you know मारपीट पड़ रही हो या कुछ भी हो, अपना जेवर लेके भाग जाओ. It's like immediately in your possession. 1, 2, you don't need a bank account for it, and आप financially include नहीं होते. And the statistics of women with bank accounts, I would like to believe that a lot of them are also joint accounts and rather than sole accounts owned by women. So there is a lot holding women back, and without bank accounts, without stuff like this, you know, आप job कैसे करोगे, आप business कैसे चलाओगे? There are lots of things that you need a bank account for. Digital Pakistan कैसे बनेगा?
Right, makes sense.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's banks really need to do more, and pink checkbooks are not the solution. Optics are not the solution. Do more.
Yeah. I want to understand a little bit about, being a journalist. So what does your job look like right now? Like, confusing सा होता है ना. ठीक है, आपको हमें तो एक आर्टिकल देखने को मिलता है essentially. अगर मैं मैगजीन की बात करूँ, I don't know ऑनलाइन कितने आर्टिकल्स आपके एवरेज आउट आ रहे होते हैं, बट मैगजीन की बात करूँ तो I believe I see at least one article in every issue.
Yeah.
And that's a week on week.
Yeah. So होता ये कि every week I submit an article. कभी कभार 1-2 हफ्ते में नहीं देती. Sorry बाबर साहब. But we submit an article at least one for the magazine every week.
Right.
And sometimes that article takes like a week of work. Sometimes that article takes a day of work. Sometimes it takes like 3 weeks of work.
Right.
And once it took like a month of work. So it depends on the article, but like मार्च से हमने शुरू किया शिफ्ट सिस्टम से कि आप अपने टाइम में काम करें.
ठीक है.
उससे पहले like ऐसा नहीं था कि we had like times like Babe Saab realized, our boss, he realized कि you know we're working all the time and we need a cut off कि भाई I'm off the clock, don't contact me. And we did that. But like फिर वापस मैं उसी चीज़ पे आ गई. मुझे 6 o'clock मेरा clock out था या 5 o'clock, लेकिन मैं वापस जो ना रात के 3 बजे फाइल. Because the thing is with writing is that you can sit in front of a computer all day long, like you could research. But when it comes to writing, you can't control when you write. And the worst part is in this job, you can't tell your boss that you have writer's block. Right? So रात के 3 बजे या जो भी जब आपसे लिखा जा रहा है, and most probably वो तभी होता है जब डेडलाइन बिल्कुल सर पे हो, भाई अब अच्छा है बुरा है करना है. एंड फिर मुझे ये भी कभी कभार ये सुकून है कि इफ़ आई राइट समथिंग एंड it's not really nicely worded or the structure is bad, so we've got a really good editor, Abdullah is a literature grad, तो वो क्या words डालता है और ऐसे ऐसे words डालता है जो मैंने कभी सुने भी नहीं होते हैं और किस तरीके से खूबसूरती से डालता है. like Abdullahfies our stories like amazingly. But my point is that लिखना पड़ता है चाहे 3 बजे हो या जो भी हो. So even though I work 9 to 5, so there's this, and then at the same time, like when we were talking, if for instance you give me like you know is company mein ye ho raha hai, and I'm like, oh really? So even when you're talking to your friends, you're working. In fact, my friends don't like talking about work with me anymore. कि भाई इसके सामने मत बोलो, कुछ पता चल जाएगा इसको तो ये लिख देगी. So like अभी recently as well, when we were working on a story about Draz, we got their financials. So my friend is the head of, she works in PR and communications there, Pire. And I called her up. I was like, "Yaar, Pire, you're gonna hate me, but we have your financials and we want to do a story on it." And she's like, "Yaar, kya masla hai?" So it's really like even when you're talking to your friends, you're working, and अब कोई मुझसे बात नहीं करता काम के बारे में, कोई भी नहीं करता.
नहीं, so writing is writing, right? Like I know for a fact a lot of people when they're looking at what you do, for example, or even when I was looking for content writers or research journalists, you know, a lot of people were sending in their CVs with दिमाग में उनके ये था कि I'm writing. So essentially उनको ये हो रहा है कि यार हम हफ्ते में ना अगर मैंने एक आर्टिकल लिखना है तो मैंने 4 घंटे राइटिंग करनी है और फिर मैंने बाकी पूरा हफ्ता फारिग बैठना है. And that's a problem. And मैं बताता हूँ क्यों आया प्रॉब्लम. वो प्रॉब्लम इस वजह से आया बिकॉज पाकिस्तान में हमने एक जनता को ना एक डायरेक्शन दे दी SEO स्पेशलिस्ट की. राइट. जिसका काम एसेंशली ये था कि गूगल खोलो, पहले 5 आर्टिकल्स उठाओ, एक डब्बे में डालो, मिक्स करो, जो वर्ड्स बाहर निकले वो आपको एसेंशली एक आर्टिकल मिल गया. एंड सो it's very hard to find people who have the ability to organically, you know, research, talk to people, interview, and then put all of that data that you sort of gathered in a form of a narrative or a story. And I'm trying to understand, for example, you're writing one article, which if you're in a flow, you could probably write in a couple of hours.
Yeah.
But what are the remaining 38 hours or 78 hours of your job that lead up to that particular article?
So for instance, for short stories, right, you spend like an hour or 2 hours going through their financials.
ठीक है.
Say, उसमें से कोई चीज़ ढूंढ लो, go through like 3 or 4 hours, like I'm talking about short stories, 3-4 hours of people, other stories that have been written about them, a little background on the people that we're talking about, like ये कहाँ से आए, क्या कर रहे हैं, क्या नहीं कर रहे हैं, and an hour or 2 to make an Excel sheet. So this is for a short story. You could finish a short story in a day. But for longer stories, like for instance, I wrote a story on vaccines, private vaccinations. So I got court documents which were this much, right? So it took me.
Had to go through all of them.
And I didn't go through them once. I went through them thrice, and believe me, every time I went through them, I found something new.
Right.
So that's the purpose. And वो भी हो जाता है. After a point, your brain stops working. So I even messaged my boss. I was like, ये कौन सा currency? And he's like, it's written there, dirhams. And I was like, oh, sorry. My brain stopped working because you know when you go through a lot.
Yeah.
So it actually depends. So from story to story. So there's one story that I really love, which is no longer that one took a month, but like not like every day a month. I submitted other stories as well during that month, but उसमें back and forth बहुत हुई कि the first time I wrote something and then I then played devil's advocate and wrote the other side, then I added the other side, so it kept going like favor against until I felt it was good to go and my boss felt it was good to go, and then Abdullah fight it a lot,
right?
So
and do you sort of, so for example आप मेरे podcast के बारे में एक story लिखती हैं, आप कहती हैं कि ये चूना लगा रहे हैं, ये corruption का पैसा ले रहे हैं, would you message me as well, listen, what's your side of the story?
Yes.
Okay, so that's like it's a by default.
Yeah, and if you don't respond, I've done my job.
Right.
So
But you will reach out. So essentially, अगर कोई story आती है and I don't get reached out,
you can. Okay, so if that happens, if I wasn't able to reach out to you, or if anyone wasn't able to reach out to you for that matter, you could contact and you could say, please add my side of the story as well. And if there's something wrong printed about you, you can get that changed, or you could, I guess, you could even request कि an editor's note come कि this was made as an error. We,
didn't get in touch, or
you didn't get something or something. It happens. But the extent to which we do this is there are two people that really hate me. And so I had to write a story about something else they were doing. So there's one guy that hates me, and I had to contact him again for another story that he would hate me more for.
Right.
But I messaged him and I was like, hey, so I know that you love journalism, and just because you love journalism, I'm hoping that you would talk to me. He did not talk to me. So when I wrote the article, the next one, I sent it to him. And my friends are like, tum kyun ho aa bel mujhe maar type. But I sent it to him. And similarly, there's a lady that does not like me. She called me a snake in the grass, just by the way. And that lady, जब उनकी एक और venture के मतलब एक और चीज़ के बारे में मुझे लिखना पड़ा, I messaged her the questions. She did not respond. I sent it through the other side as well. She did not respond. I wrote the article. I sent it to her. But that was a good article. उन्होंने बाद में share भी किया. तो yeah.
Right.
हम नाम छुपा रहे हैं अपनी सेफ्टी के लिए.
Legal note is coming to हम मासूम सा एक platform है, हम छोटे थे. 10 billion क्या?
Rupees.
For?
Legal notice था.
Really?
10 billion rupees. Yeah.
किस इतना arbitrary number कहाँ से आता है यार? आज 10 अरब डाल दो.
ये समझ नहीं आता ये numbers, मतलब अपनी मर्जी है.
Randomly. मुझे ये बताएं कि so I understand, आपका एक तो ये है कि you get a bunch of documents, you're gonna read them, you're gonna reach out to people digitally and you're gonna ask them a bunch of questions. But you're in Islamabad right now, for example, and I know you sent the Excel and there's a bunch of meetings that you have.
Excel sheet pe I have I want it to be organized.
The Excel is not the right platform. I mean, there are a bunch of apps for that.
There was a column. There was a thing that said chilling time.
But you're here for certain interviews for a certain story, or is this something different?
So I'm technically not working for 2 days.
Oh.
So
this is your personal trip.
It's a personal trip, I guess. So I don't know.
If your personal trip looks like what I saw on that calendar, that's a sad life.
Yeah. Ouch. So basically, I'm moderating an event for IPRI tomorrow. It's a lecture series by Raza Bakr. It's not a lecture series by Raza Bakr. Raza Bakr is delivering a lecture in that series. So I'm moderating.
Very cool.
So even though that did not come through from work, like my boss didn't assign it for me, but it got assigned because of what I do at work.
Yeah.
So there's that.
I mean, technically that is work. That's part of not just work in terms of your one position.
That's part of career.
That's part of,
yeah. So I'm here for that. And I'm also meeting a few people as well.
सही. अच्छा, एक बड़ा important सवाल है, and I've been following this for a while. Why do you hate overseas Pakistanis?
I don't hate. I'm just bitter. मेरे पास 915 वाला NIC भी है, लेकिन residency नहीं है, green card नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है, blue passport नहीं है. I'm just bitter. I'm a very bitter person. But I don't hate them. I just don't like the fact कि मैं पाकिस्तान में रह रही हूँ, मैं टैक्स दे रही हूँ, मैं सब कर रही हूँ, मैं यहाँ की मुसीबतें झेल रही हूँ, ठीक है. एंड कोई बाहर का बंदा मुझसे ज़्यादा सस्ते में गाड़ी क्यों लेके जाएगा?
Right.
कोई बाहर का बंदा certificates पे मुझसे ज़्यादा क्यों कमाएगा?
Right.
मतलब I understand they're giving you foreign exchange, but like एक कुछ ज़्यादा ही privilege दे रहे हैं. And then when they come up with the narrative that our overseas Pakistanis do a lot for us, yeah, you send remittances, very good, thank you very much. आपने डैम फंड में भी डोनेट किया, अल्लाह आपको बहुत जज़ा दे. But like जो आप remittance भेजते हो, that's for your family. If your family does not live in Pakistan, आप remittance नहीं भेजोगे. I doubt आप remittance भेजोगे. और अगर आप भेजोगे तो आप charity के लिए भेजोगे. That again is for yourself. So whatever you do, you're kind of doing it for yourself. You're not sending remittance कि इससे पाकिस्तान का current account अच्छा होगा. That is not what goes on in your mind when you send remittances.
Right. So but the counter argument essentially is कि पाकिस्तान में भी जो essentially कोई भी कुछ भी कर रहा है वो inherently selfish reasons की वजह से कर रहा है. Right? Like nobody does charity for Pakistan.
I'm paying my taxes because I have to pay my taxes.
Right.
Right. Like, would you, if taxes were an option, would you pay your taxes?
I mean, probably, but
FBR, I love tax.
नहीं, so I get it. Like कोई वाली बात है कि
selfish तो है, but my point is if someone's living in a country,
yeah,
they're dealing with the good and the bad, right? I don't think someone else should be given preference based on some policies. As in,
Okay.
give them some concessions. लेकिन अब कुछ ज़्यादा ही हम लोग कुछ ज़्यादा ही
pure incentivization है ना? So
pure
again,
incentivization.
It's
So
purely numbers.
It's purely numbers, yes, but
It's a lot of hot money coming in. ठीक है, उसका आ रहा है, आपने रोशन डिजिटल में डाल दिया, आपकी बुक्स अच्छी हो गई.
As in, yes, I understand that you want dollars. आपको भी कोई उनसे प्यार व्यार कुछ नहीं है.
हाँ.
आप बस बोल रहे हो.
And to be very honest, मैं अगर इसको फ्लिप साइड देखूँ ना,
Yeah.
तो 2013 से 2017 तक ओवरसीज पाकिस्तानीज, देखिए यहाँ पर ओवरसीज पाकिस्तानीज का जो सबसे बड़ा गुस्सा है ना, जिसके ऊपर वो जो प्रॉब्ली जब उन्होंने पढ़ा होगा तो उन्होंने कहा होगा कि यार WTF. So essentially उस टाइम के ऊपर उन्होंने किया ये था कि उन्होंने ये कहा था कि यार मैं अगर अपनी फैमिली को पैसे भेजता हूँ, आपने अपनी कंट्री के अंदर ऐसी पॉलिसीज़ रखी हुई हैं जिसमें जो मेरे डॉलर की एक्चुअल वर्थ है, जो मेरा बच्चा जो बेचारा गवर्नमेंट स्कूल जा रहा है, कोई दुबई में रहता है, मेहनत मजदूरी कर रहा है, ना पासपोर्ट है उसके पास, ना उसके पास बेनिफिट्स हैं.
So before I go on, ये जो schemes निकल रही हैं, जैसे for instance the car scheme, this is not benefiting वो जो मजदूर आप जिसकी बात कर रहे हो. And if we go through the numbers, and I know it's a proxy because it's not an approximate, it's not an actual वो, because जो बाहर अच्छी jobs करते हैं वो अपने आप को register नहीं करते, but like around 50%, more than 50% of our labor, of our people that move abroad are either laborers or drivers abroad.
Right.
तो वो गाड़ी नहीं खरीद रहे, आप अमीरों के लिए वो कर रहे हो incentivize बाहर जो रहने वाले अमीर हैं, जो to be very honest they could pay the full interest rate as well, they could pay the full thing as well. So that is my concern. So बाकी incentivizing money coming in, that is completely fine, but like I just felt that a car scheme right now when the auto sector was doing really well.
हाँ, वो एक अलग बात है कि मुझे उसकी to be very honest मुझे इस तरह से समझ नहीं आई थी कि मैंने पिछले 3 साल ये सुनते हुए गुजारे हैं कि पाकिस्तान को फॉरेक्स का प्रॉब्लम है.
Yeah.
ठीक है, फिर मैं क्या करता हूँ, मैं कहता हूँ यार मुझे फॉरेक्स भेजो और एक ऐसी इंडस्ट्री में मैं तुम्हें इंसेंटिवाइज करता हूँ जिसमें मेजॉरिटी ऑफ दैट मनी विल इवेंचुअली लीव पाकिस्तान.
And it's not about leaving Pakistan because there are lots of people that are setting up in Pakistan as well. So
I mean they're setting up assembly now.
Yeah,
you're putting up a percentage into the economy.
But my point is that the auto sector, like for instance, if the auto sector is doing bad and it needed a push, I'd be like, go for it.
Okay.
The auto sector is doing really well. We've got new players coming in and rebound हो गया पिछले साल के comparison में. So things are good. Like you didn't need that extra push for a sector that is primarily rent seekers.
Yeah.
So sorry guys, but like my point is they didn't need it.
Yeah.
I was on the plane and there's an auto manufacturer sitting next to me and he's like, बहुत अच्छी government है, बहुत अच्छा state bank है यार, बहुत मजा आ गया. And I was like, because yeah, like my critique is not कि आप overseas Pakistanis को क्यों encourage कर रहे हो to send money. ठीक है, encourage them. Again, don't make the locals feel inferior to them. 1. 2, choose the right sectors, man. Choose the right sectors. And we don't need more cars on the road.
Yeah.
We need public transport. We do not need more cars. We need like literally आप लोगों के पास तो buses और सब हैं, हमारे पास कुछ नहीं है.
पता नहीं है क्या बात कर रही हैं. हमें तो है public transport हमारे पास. आपने ग्रीन लाइन कहाँ तक पहुंची है यार? मतलब what's क्या सीन है? Like क्या सीन है यार कराची का? फिर मुझे कराची वाले आगे कमेंट सेक्शन में बोलते हैं यार मुज़म्मिल भाई आप जो है ना ड्रामे करते हैं. How difficult is it to देखें.
So I drive. ठीक है. I drive. I don't use these ride-hailing apps because I feel that I don't feel safe as a woman in them. But you know, if मुझे मेरी यूनिवर्सिटी घर से.
How difficult is it to do a metro? आप शहबाज शरीफ को देखें. ठीक है कहाँ मेट्रो आ गई.
हाँ, लेकिन मसला ये भी है ना कराची में like एक होता है कि मेट्रो बना भी ले, एक होता है मेट्रो शुड बी गोइंग थ्रू द राइट एरियाज. कराची इज सो वैस्ट एट दिस पॉइंट, इट्स रियली डिफिकल्ट टू एक्चुअली मेक अ सिस्टम दैट वर्क्स इन द सेंस कि मुझे सबके ऑफिस अगर सदर में हैं तो वहाँ तक जैसे फ्रॉम व्हाट आई हर्ड, फ्रॉम व्हाट आई अंडरस्टैंड इज लाहौर इस्लामाबाद में जो मेट्रो है दे डोंट कवर द होल सिटी.
They don't cover the whole city. So होगा ये essentially. That's one of the reasons why पेशावर का वो थोड़ा सा different setup था. मेन सिटी मेट्रो जो होगी वो तो आपकी एक बेसिक लाइन होगी. पूरी दुनिया में ऐसे ही होता है.
You should call Gulrez from Twitter for
Gulrez जो the guy who bikes a lot.
Yeah, the guy who bikes a lot and वो जो he digital. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you what bank, but like that guy.
Yes.
He's the perfect guy to talk about this.
अच्छा, very interesting.
Yeah.
How do you like Islamabad by the way?
I've been to Islamabad before.
Okay.
So the last time I was in Islamabad, I was here for like 24 hours.
Achha.
And then 24 hours के अंदर I saw the Faisal Masjid, Pakistan Monument. I saw D-Chok and the containers. I also saw वो जो Munal and पूरा पहाड़ देख लिया था गाड़ी पे. And I stopped at that Damne ko place, and then I had an iftar. I had an event as well in the morning. So like वाकई में जो कहते हैं ना इस्लामाबाद आप 2 घंटे में घूम सकते हो, वो सही कहते हैं.
हाँ 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, फिर वो DHA वाला इस्लामाबाद आ जाता है वो.
So
we don't really consider that as.
So today as well, like when I'm done with this, I'm gonna have lunch and then I'm gonna go trekking. So मैं वो पहाड़ Margala Hills देख लूँगी. फिर मैं रात को I'm gonna chill, and then the next day I'm gonna do all this in 2 hours, and then I'm gonna catch a flight and go back home.
Very cool, very cool.
So I like it. I like how आपके पास इतने दरख्त हैं जितने मैंने इतने साल में नहीं देखे हैं.
चले जबरदस्त. I'm glad that generally खाना तो नहीं आपने खाया अभी तक.
No.
आप अभी land.
Yeah, no food yet.
हाँ क्योंकि खाना.
I got a message from a friend. We were choosing where to eat ना, तो they were like, you should go to this place, and then my other friend goes like, she's from Karachi. She's
हाँ,
not.
we don't even try.
She doesn't miss food.
Yeah.
Bring her the views.
Yeah.
It's like ठीक है यार.
क्योंकि मुझे I hired someone who just relocated to Islamabad, and he was the first day he was like, "Muzamil भाई खाने का क्या सीन है?" मैंने कहा भैया
हम
disappointment है तो मैं अब आपको कुछ सेल नहीं करूँगा, जो सस्ता मिल रहा है खा लो.
At the same time, I would also like to say, एक तो मैं elitist हूँ खाने के मामले में because I'm from Karachi and we think we're better than you. दूसरा because I'm Urdu speaking and हम लोग do you get it? Like हम लोग का खाना तो वाह होता है. So that's literally.
Yeah, like I think Lahore and Karachi can fight it over regarding food and fashion. That two areas we just don't get into.
Yeah. You guys सो जाता है ना 10 बजे.
अच्छा वैसे सोते नहीं है, दुनिया बड़ी बदल गई है. लेकिन चलें, आप एक खातून हैं, आप एक जर्नलिस्ट हैं. ट्विटर के ऊपर लास्ट ईयर एक बहुत बड़ा वो था कि ख़वातीन जर्नलिस्ट के ऊपर बड़े अटैक्स होते हैं. दिस लॉट ऑफ ट्रोलिंग गोइंग ऑन. बड़े डिफरेंट उसमें ओपिनियंस हैं. कोई ओपिनियन ये कहता है कि लिसन लाइक the internet is about trolling, essentially has become about trolling.
So apparently मुझे बोला गया अभी थोड़े दिन पहले कि using the word troll liberally is also wrong, and I got trolled for using the word troll.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so apparently someone was trolling me.
Okay.
And मैंने उसको troll बोला, and a certain party वाले all came towards me and like, you guys call us all trolls and ये troll का word बहुत liberally use हो रहा है. I'm like, यार तो मैं क्या बोल लूँ. मैं भी तो ट्रोल करती हूँ कभी कभार, मतलब मैं डिनाई नहीं कर रही कि मैं कभी किसी. सो इट्स वेरी वियर्ड लाइक एज अ जर्नलिस्ट व्हेन यू टॉक अबाउट ट्विटर, people have like very serious personas on it, like especially financial journalists, and मेरे ट्विटर पे आओ तो अजीब खाने लग रहे होते हैं, तो ये लग रहा होता है, तो it's मैं ट्रोल करती हूँ. But when you're talking about bullying and जो harassment हो रही थी.
So how do you differentiate trolling and harassment? Like what I'm trying to understand is obviously जो liberally वाली बात है ना, I do understand on some level, because जब alternate side से आप बात करते हैं तो वो ये कहते हैं कि यार हम एक्चुअल भी कोई बात करने की कोशिश करें तो अब वो बड़ा आसान एक कॉप आउट हो गया है कि लिसन इफ यू गोना क्वेश्चन. सो पुराने वक्तों में क्या होता था कि मीडिया और जर्नलिज्म जो थी वो कंट्रोल थी बाय अ सर्टेन सेट ऑफ पीपल, राइट? लाइक एक सेट है, सेट के नीचे सर्टेन सेट ऑफ जर्नलिस्ट्स हैं और उन्होंने अपना एक बना दिया कि भाई हम जर्नलिस्ट हैं.
पहले back in the day, not everyone had like अब आज तो we have internet, right?
Right.
Everyone can be an expert on something within 5 minutes. So
Yep.
everyone has an opinion on something, and what we don't understand, what happens is social media pe discourse is difficult because the minute someone says, if I go like क्या कहते हैं ये let's say for instance ये policy नहीं होनी चाहिए थी. And then the guy gives a sarcastic comment. I'm going to treat it as if, you know, he's being mean to me. And then I'm going to give a response in that way as well. So इस तरह की चीज़ें होती हैं social media पे अच्छा खासा. There are a few people, like, for instance, मैं लिखती थी, the stock market is not an indicator of the economy, right?
Right.
And I used to write in capital, तो इसलिए मैं इस तरह बोल भी रही हूँ. But there are a few people that got really pissed off at me. And they were like, we're unfollowing you. And आप ये ऐसी हरकतें कर रही हैं. And yeah. And जब मैं उनसे तमीज़ से बोल रही हूँ कि I would say this when the market's up and also when the market's down. It's constant.
Yeah,
it's constant for me, regardless of who's in power, regardless of what's happening.
Yeah.
तो my point being कि उनको जो है गुस्सा आ गया. मतलब इन सारी बात, मतलब इतनी सी बात पे भी किसी को गुस्सा आ सकता है. So that is something. So to be very honest, I don't really understand the fine line between trolling and
I think that what I'm trying to
being mean, but harassment का ये है कि when they get personal, when you get personal,
right?
So for instance, if for instance ऐसी बहुत दफ़ा हुआ है कि मैंने कुछ बोला और in response मुझे जवाब मिलता है कि like if you go on to my pin tweet, like जो बेटियों को ज़्यादा से उस पे मेरे अब्बा को बोला जा रहा है कि आप काश सर ना चढ़ाते इनको. तो इस तरह की चीज़ें that I would label as harassment. आपको गालियाँ पड़ रही हैं, I would label that as harassment. इस तरह की चीज़ें जैसे आपको बार बार रैंडम लोग DM कर रहे हैं, like literally repeatedly आपको randomly calls आ रही हैं masked numbers से, I would call that harassment. और फिर I would also call that harassment कि आपने एक चीज़ ट्वीट किया, कुछ किया, एक specific group of people, like उनके WhatsApp group में वो गया, troll this person. I would call that harassment because you've got like, you're one person.
It's organized essentially.
Yeah, I would call organized trolling harassment. Because आप एक बंदे हो and you're like firing, like आपके ऊपर bullets आ रहे हैं, you're like save me from all those places.
Right.
So the best thing to do is do not respond to anonymous people or smaller accounts.
Yeah, I think something that very good, interestingly, from the alternate side, किसी ने मुझे एक दफ़ा जाके DM करके रिकमेंडेशन दी थी और उन्होंने ये कहा था कि यार आपने जो है ना वो 5,000 से कम पे किसी को नहीं करना. आपने किसी ऐसे बंदे को, क्योंकि मैं नया ट्विटर पे आया था और आई वाज जस्ट लाइक यार ये क्या जंग.
Before I joined, like when I joined Twitter, my friend was like, oh, you got a very bad following to follower ratio. Yeah.
Is that a thing as well?
I learned that it was a thing back then. So I followed like around 300 people and I was followed by like 20 people. So they're like, nahi yaar, you need to follow less people than, you know, people are following. I was like, अच्छा, लेकिन मैं 20 से 15 कर दूँ क्या ये? मैं क्या करूँगी Twitter पे? So but like no, I don't have a cutoff. It's based on the profile. So if I see the person, बंदा तमीज़ का decent लग रहा है, I will respond regardless if the person has 10 followers.
Right.
But like if the person's a random person, then नंबर उसी वक्त प्रोफाइल देख के सर्टेन किया जा सकता है एंड कमेंट देख के कि क्या बोला जा रहा है.
But you think, do you feel like, genuinely feel like कि यार जो overall, and you've been on Twitter since for how long?
I think I've been on there since 7 years, but actively started using it since 2015.
2015. So you've been there for a good part of 6 years.
Yeah, man.
Do you think the situation online is becoming a lot more problematic or dangerous?
It is. So the thing is that, and I don't want to talk about this because it's a very confusing thing. Cancel culture, say, there's things that were okay a few years ago are no longer okay. Like, for instance, our favorite movies, बचपन में जो हम देखते थे, TV shows, like for instance, people are like Friends, बहुत सारी चीज़ें. तो things are changing rapidly, and you've got to stay up with the times. And my personal view on this is that sometimes people don't know what they're doing, and per internet pe hota, it's not someone's job of educating someone, but like कभी कभी लोगों को genuinely नहीं पता होता. Like for instance, a few days ago, someone called me a girl on Twitter. And
what does that mean?
So listen to this. Someone said, oh, this Ariba girl is doing something, right? So I got a DM from someone I really look up to. She's a woman. She said, you're not a girl. And I'm like, no, I identify as a woman. She's like, you're a woman. You're not a girl. And the point is that when people call you a girl, they might try to dismiss you as being young or unimportant, but you're a woman. So these are small things that we don't notice. So this person that I really look up to, and I looked at it from a different lens, and I was like, okay, fine, makes sense. So the thing is that things are changing rapidly, and you know, I'm not doubting that guy's intentions. He literally called me a girl, and he like उससे compliment किया था कि मैं काम अच्छा कर रही हूँ जो भी कर रही हूँ.
More often than not क्या होता है कि आप phrases को सीखते हो based on how you see them being used. You're not really
and
in
sometimes
a
you don't
bad intention.
give them second thoughts. Like for instance, like your parents, my parents, कभी कभार वो ऐसी चीजें करते हैं which are not acceptable by our generation. So for instance, my mom, she had a salon and she's a makeup artist. So कभी कभार मेरी पहले जब दोस्तें आती थी, my mom would go like, oh बेटा आपके दाने निकल रहे हैं ना, आप ये tea tree oil लगा दो. Right. And a year ago, I sat my mom down. I was like, Mama, ठीक है, my friends do not mind you saying it. But like now when my friends come over, आप कुछ नहीं बोलिएगा. अगर उनका weight बढ़ जाए, आप कोई टोटका कुछ नहीं बताएंगे. My mom's like, but I'm telling them. Helping them out. Yeah. And then I was like, no, Mom, they're going to be like, hey, आप जो है ना, आप point out करें मेरी flaws. And my mom's like, that was not my intention. Yeah. And she's like, ठीक है. And then now, अभी परसों मैंने उनको पता नहीं कोई आने वाला था, मम्मा क्या करेंगी? मैं कुछ बोलूँगी ही नहीं, मुझे अब बोलना ही नहीं है, पता नहीं क्या है. And I was like, ठीक है, आपको जो बोलना है मुझे बोलना है. But like, the thing is that.
But do you think the political
intentions matter as well?
Intentions matter, absolutely. And I think, do you think जो ये political correctness का जो environment create हो रहा है,
you can't always be politically correct.
Because देखिए पता है मैं the reason why I personally have a problem with this. So I joined the internet back in 1999, dial-up.
I still remember the sound dial-up.
Yeah, and
you half of you don't know.
And then 2007 में I believe 2006, 5 or 6 के अंदर Orkut, MSN Messenger तो OG.
बचपन की यादें. Nudge.
7 nudge exactly. 7 में Facebook.
Yeah.
So there's that sort of evolution. And then Facebook particularly, जब आपका sort of समझ लें कि MSN
Messenger was, just by the way, do you call Instagram IG or Instagram. Or the gram?
Instagram. Just Instagram.
Oh, so apparently it depends on which generation you're from. Okay. So आजकल के बच्चे call it IG. My generation calls it Insta. And इस तरह से नहीं आजकल के बच्चे call it the gram.
How old are you?
I'm 25.
25. So there's a 5-year difference here. मेरे दिमाग में हमेशा Instagram ही रहा है. It's never been.
So you should ask this question from people.
Yeah, that's interesting. But so MSN Messenger बहुत ही छोटी सी एक तो MIRC था, very small cult.
I have no idea about that.
Okay, so MIRC was this random anonymized chat space जहाँ पर आप जाते थे, आप enter करते थे.
Omegle होता था ना?
नहीं Omegle तो essentially ये ना कि आप एक anonymous versus anonymous दो लोग आपस में chat करते हैं. MIRC was this central place.
Yeah.
ठीक है इंटरनेट के ऊपर जिस पे आप connect करते थे, connect करने के बाद फिर different rooms होते थे. So like Reddit
chat rooms.
Yeah, so Reddit का पुराना version समझ लें.
Okay.
एंड आप एनोनिमाइज जाके तो उसमें ये होता था कि जी अब ये मैं आपको वो टाइम बता रहा हूँ जब दुनिया में कनेक्टिविटी का कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं है, ठीक है, एंड द इंटरनेट्स देयर एंड सडनली यू कनेक्ट एंड यू गो टू MIRC एंड सडनली देयर लाइक 4 people ऑनलाइन एंड द बिगेस्ट थिंग वाज कि देयर आर 4 people ऑनलाइन. सो देयर इज इन सम बेसमेंट समवेयर
अराउंड द वर्ल्ड समवेयर.
या एंड अराउंड द वर्ल्ड एक बात है, इस्लामाबाद का रूम है और उस पे इस्लामाबाद में भी लोग हैं. So there was a very small cult of internet worshippers. And then उसके बाद
so आपके लिए शायद मतलब you grew up when internet came, right?
Yeah.
Like मेरे टाइम पे like
you
saw it. Dial up था लेकिन saw it. So मेरा ये था कि we weren't in Pakistan.
Right.
तो नानी नाना से और दादी से we would MSN पे video call. So for me internet था.
Was always there.
Internet था. But like the evolution of so on the flight today I was thinking okay, within the past 5 years, within the past decade, what thing have we created which is new or which is revolutionary or groundbreaking?
I feel like there's nothing because...
So like, smartphones पहले बन गए, social media पहले बन गया.
Facebook, Insta, everything was there.
5 साल के अंदर हमने कुछ नहीं बनाया है. Nothing.
Probably cryptocurrencies.
नहीं, वो भी पहले से बनी हुई है.
हाँ, टेक्निकली पहले से मेन स्ट्रीम. बट क्वेश्चन मेरा पॉइंट बेसिकली ये था कि आपके पास एक पॉइंट के ऊपर MIRC, MSN Messenger, then Facebook ने थोड़ा सा
Facebook led the way to bigger things.
And when Facebook sort of happened, मुझे याद है कि जब मैंने कंटेंट बनाना शुरू किया, मैं पब्लिक की तरफ आया, तो मेरी पहली जंग थी राइट के खिलाफ. कि राइट कहता था कि यार बोलो नहीं, तस्वीरें ना डालो. पर्टिकुलरली मेरी बहन हो गई, मेरी बेगम हो गई, फूल की पत्ती, फूल डालो अपनी प्रोफाइल, हाँ, और बेबीज डाल दो या कोई प्रिंसेस डाल दो डिज्नी की. एंड वी फॉट to have to find that freedom of expression where we were like, listen, we can do what we want, we can say what we want, and it's not problematic. So there was a constant problem from the right which said problematic. So तुम्हारी ये हरकत करने से सोसाइटी में बुराई फैल रही है. And so we fought that, and by 2015, I believe, I would say that's the peak of free internet, true free internet, where you could go in, you could have.
2015 में वो Facebook ब्लॉक नहीं हुआ था. फेसबुक और यूट्यूब
ब्लॉक हुआ था.
फेसबुक ही ब्लॉक हुआ था ना थोड़े दिन
2012 में हुआ था,
या
12-13 में हुआ था. एंड 15 में बेसिकली फेसबुक भी हो गया था. इतना शोर मच चुका था कि बिल्कुल अर्ली 2016 में यूट्यूब भी खुल गया. सो
और यूट्यूब खुला भी नहीं था तो YT पार्क था ना हमारे पास.
YT पार्क था, एग्जैक्टली. सो उस टाइम के ऊपर आई वुड से दैट वाज द लाइक dank memes and all sorts of weird things, and everybody was fine in their own silo and doing what they want. And then 16 forward, like post Trump essentially, the left started rising, and they were like problematic, and now
I don't think things are as black and white as they're seen.
Okay.
Again, intentions matter, and थोड़ा educate करना पड़ता है about things and how they go forward. तो but a certain segment says it's not your responsibility to educate. So it's, to be very honest, so for instance, if I'm ever confused about something, I don't comment on it. I just go like, you know what, मैं social media पे इस पे नहीं comment करूँगी, मुझे इस पे कुछ नहीं बोलना, मैं दूसरों के लड़ाइयों में नहीं घुसूँगी, इस तरह से मैंने वो किया हुआ है अपना. But I don't think I want to actively partake in cancelling someone unless I actually see. So I would want to partake in cancelling actual harassers.
Right. So kuch red line behavior.
Yeah. So kuch actual thieves, or but again, this is for instance cricket.
Yeah.
Amir, he was spot fixing, right? He went through his time. He went through rehab. Is he cancelled forever? Should we cancel him forever? Once a spot fixer, always, or like how?
Rehabilitation का भी कोई concept होता है ना?
Cricket में तो rehab तो नजर आ रहा है because he went to jail. He got fined. So let's say a normal harasser. Let's say for instance our famous pop singer. I'm not going to name him. What's his thing? Does he? If
How
he goes
does he come back to the society essentially? Like
he's already in society.
No, I know. My question probably is
like if he gets, for instance, if he goes to jail for this, or if he gets like punished for this or whatever,
is he banished for the rest of his life, or is it for a time?
Or is it for a time? And if it's just for that like time, how do I know he's been rehabbed? So there's a lot. I don't know, to be very honest. These are things that keep me up at night.
I know. I think we're at this transitionary time where we're defining a lot of things. That's why there's a conversation there as well, because I feel like एक point के ऊपर मेरा मानना यह है कि moral policing नहीं होनी चाहिए, चाहे वो right करे या left करे.
Yeah.
एंड मॉरल पुलिसिंग को अगर आप थोड़ा सा डीकंस्ट्रक्ट करें तो एसेंशियली क्या होता है कि यार कुछ चीज़ें आपने डिफाइन कर दी हैं किसी सोसाइटी के अंदर कि ये राइट एंड रॉन्ग है, और कुछ चीज़ें आर्बिट्रेरी हैं जिसमें आप नया डिफाइन कर रहे हो. आप कह रहे हो कि यार ये लैंग्वेज जो है ना वो एक मॉरली
गाली देना बुरा है,
एग्जैक्टली.
गाली देना बुरा है, लेकिन किसी को ट्रोल करना, दैट इज़ अ ग्रे एरिया इन द सेंस के टू द एक्सटेंट ऑफ व्हाट यू आर ट्रोलिंग.
राइट.
एंड अगेन ये एक्सटेंट भी जो है इट्स अ ग्रे मैटर, इट्स अ वैल्यू जजमेंट. सो
ट्रोलिंग स्टिल देखिए, उसमें ट्रोलिंग के अंदर साइकोलॉजिकल एस्पेक्ट्स आ जाते हैं, बुलिंग वाले. सो मैं वो बड़ा ग्रे है. मैं कहता हूँ फॉर एग्जांपल उन साहब ने बोला गर्ल, ठीक है, अब वो ऑन टू समवन्स अंडरस्टैंडिंग वो एक मॉरल वो है कि मॉरली उसने बड़ी गलत चीज़ की बिकॉज वो इस तरह ना डिमिनिश करना चाह रहा है. सबकॉन्शियसली राइट ऑन समवन. जिस तरह मैंने कहा कि एक राइट आगे क्या करती थी कि तुम्हारे कपड़ों की वजह से जो है ना वो इस तरह, दैट्स योर अंडरस्टैंडिंग, लाइक दैट्स नॉट व्हाट्स हैपनिंग आउटसाइड. एंड सो आई फील लाइक कि वहाँ पर देयर इज दैट moral policing now that is coming in from the educated lot as well based on their, because and I feel like that's a counter to constantly being pushed on a side.
True.
Where they're so pushed that they're like, listen, now we'll come up with our own set of moral code and now go ahead.
Sometimes I think the things that we're fighting for, kabhi kabar wo itni trivial hoti hain ki in the grand scheme of things, the bigger things are missing, or the bigger things are also treated as bad because aap to iske liye lad rahe the. To wo jo, for instance, like women rights as well. So if they're fighting for something that people object to, which is important, I'm not saying it's not important, it may be important to some people, it may not be important, like for that particular group, that one thing is important, like for fighting for that particular thing, the major thing where women get equal rights or equal opportunities at work, वो पूरा डिरेल हो जा रहा है कि नहीं, फेमिनिज्म तो है ही बुरा, तो भाई वो इस एक चीज की वजह से जो अच्छी चीजें जिनके ऊपर आप लोग
मेजॉरिटी कनेक्ट करेगी,
मेजॉरिटी कनेक्ट करेगी, इनफैक्ट वो भी बोलेंगे हाँ ये ठीक है, बट जस्ट बिकॉज इट्स अंडर दैट ब्रांड नेम, अब नहीं, क्योंकि उसमें एक ये बुराई है तो अब मुझे ये तो पसंद ही नहीं है. So these are things that everything is not black and white. There are some gray areas, but yes, I'm not saying that people should not be punished for what they do. They should. I don't know if I'm the judge. I don't know if I'm the judge. I can cancel someone on my behalf and say मुझे ये बंदा नहीं अच्छा लगता, मैं इसको आगे नहीं follow करूँगी. But I cannot enforce it on you because आपकी मर्जी है. And अगर आप किसी को cancel नहीं कर रहे, unless that person has not done something extremely terrible, I will not cut ties with you. हाँ, if that person's like, let's say, a legitimate harasser and you have him on your podcast, I'd be like, यार नहीं यार, मुझे मुज़म्मिल के podcast पे नहीं आना है.
Right.
That is something I can do. I can control myself.
Yeah. Makes sense. I know I had like 4 other pointers here.
Yeah,
but I
sorry.
know that you have to go for a lunch and it's a very, very important lunch. So I'm going to cut this off here. We're at the 52-minute mark. Ariba, thank you so much for coming in. This was extremely insightful and I hope that the next time you're here in town.
हमने जो plan किया था हमने उस पे बात नहीं की.
वो नहीं की और हम उस पे कर सकें. But again, like I don't want to hold you back.
Makes sense.
Thank you so much for coming in and for all the insight that you shared. Love your work.
Thank you so much.
And I hope that क्योंकि पाकिस्तान में इस किस्म की journalism, overall journalism नहीं हो रही, economic journalism में finally हमें थोड़ी सी इकोनॉमी की समझ आए because
so we've got this new thing, I guess, we're explained like I'm 5.
Right.
So we're trying to do that. उसमें मैं अपने आप को भी समझा रही होती हूँ बहुत सारी चीज़ें. So every week I learn something new.
Right.
So
and you're able to teach people like they're 5.
If I learn it.
Zabardast.
Because I learn it because I'm mentally 5.
Right.
So it's easier.
Zabardast. Thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you so much.
And I look forward to seeing a lot of great work from you.
Thank you. It was really nice being here and in Islamabad. But like, yeah.
चलें. And for all of you guys, thank you so much for watching. अगर आपको एपिसोड पसंद आएगा तो अपने दोस्तों के साथ जरूर शेयर करिएगा. YouTube वाले लाइक का बटन दबाएंगे, एंगेजमेंट बढ़ेगी और ज़्यादा लोगों तक हमारी कॉन्वर्सेशन पहुंचेगी.
Are you speaking?
ऑडियो प्लेटफॉर्म वाले सब्सक्राइब का बटन दबाएंगे, आने वाली एपिसोड का नोटिफिकेशन मिलेगी. फेसबुक वाले नीचे दी गई लिंक पर क्लिक करेंगे तो TBT कम्युनिटी ज्वाइन कर सकते हैं. यहाँ पर डिफरेंट फीडबैक भी लेते हैं हम आपकी गेस्ट रिकमेंडेशन भी लेते हैं. We share different articles. We have interesting conversations. You can join that as well. But anyways, this was Muzamil. You were watching Thought Behind Things. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.